Thank you for joining me. This will be my video on the Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 2. So I am going to start with a review that is only spoiling the first 4 movies, and then I will start a spoiler section, but I will verbally warn before I get into any spoilers for this movie. And let's see, it is rated PG-13. So this video be. And yeah, uh, I love this one as well, just like the first 4. So I think I'm not going to give too much detail. I'll say that, yeah, since the 4th movie ended with both the birth and birth and death and rebirth. This one is in part about Bella, being a newborn vampire and having a newborn half vampire daughter. And I think I'll just note that there is a threat on the horizon, and part of the movie is devoted to them preparing to face it. I don't think I want to give away exactly what. Um, yeah. What I will say is, thankfully, it involves the Vulture, so we get more glorious Michael Sheen. I think it's in the commentary track or maybe the behind the scenes, but I want to say it's the director, Bill Condon, notes that Michael 100% gets it. He nails the tone of his performance. Like, it's incredible how just pitch perfect. And that's something I've seen people who hate this movie and the others. Like, the one thing they'll say that's positive is Michael Sheen. Yeah, I think that I thought they did a good job exploring these different things. Like, obviously in real life there are no vampires. Um, Van Helsing killed them all, but you could easily take it as just there's a sense of self-actualization in Bella becoming a vampire, and I thought they did a really great job on that. And the I'm not sure where else to talk about it, so I'll just briefly note. So yeah, part of the movie, some of the actors have to um, hold a baby or act opposite a fairly small child, and again, I forget exactly where, but somewhere on the DVD, yeah, it's talked about how they really loved that. Let's see, I think it was especially Pattinson was very, yeah. And Kristen Stewart, if I recall, was also very happy to be working with, and just really, is the word bond? Because they don't work together for that long, but certainly they liked working together. They entertained each other during the time between takes and such. So the psychological accuracy, authenticity, and level of detail are quite high, and yeah. So I already mentioned, Bella self-actualization. Other than that, you have the way that different people react to, yeah, now this couple also has a kid, and yeah, some of the responses to the fact that there is this source of danger are also very credible. And So yeah, as far as authenticity, so obviously it feels weird to say when there's such fantastical elements at play, but when it's not that, yeah, the authenticity really, really tremendous. Because there are some moments where, okay, that's exactly how it would be in real life. And I do think they do a solid job, like still, they did it in the first four movies as well, of making it feel like the fantastical elements could, like, what's the word? Like the ideas that you could this world could exist and function. Sometimes you have to be careful with world building. If you make, like, hypothetically, if you make a world where the villains are just extremely powerful and the heroes are very weak, it becomes very difficult to believe that the heroes could possibly win. You're going to have to do a lot of legwork to make that convincing. But yeah, here they make smart choices, and the let's see, the what's the word for the yes, the details. It feels like all of this could coexist in the same world. Nothing in the here is like world breaking, and the there's enough. We learn enough that it feels like, okay, this, there's that's another thing. You have to be careful. You don't want to get bogged down in lore, but you also want there to be enough detail that it feels like, okay, this really could, you know, yeah. Um, yeah, the tone, it does not get quite as what's the word? Compared to the fourth movie. This one doesn't go for as you know it is still camp, and I use that term in a neutral, bordering on positive manner. I am not saying that it's bad. I don't think camp is bad, and we should get to a place where we can just appreciate, like, listen, it's not for everyone. I get that, but I don't think we should think of it as bad. um but the yeah, still camp, doesn't get quite some of the stuff in the fourth would be very difficult to top. So instead it focuses on delivering in other places. And yeah, I thought they did a really solid job of this, like, I think the word is simmer, like it doesn't get to be excessive, but they do have this tension throughout a good chunk of the movie of, well, how is this gonna end up? How will this go? And yeah, um, there's a lot of elements that have to all be assembled and worked into, played with. They all have to come into play. That's the term, and they do a good job of that. And yeah, the dialogue is quite good. It's still, everyone has their own distinct voice, and I thought it worked well the way that, certain characters, there might be a while where they don't say anything, and then at a very choice moment they'll say something, and it's very specific, and the way they're saying it is also very noteworthy. I thought they did a really good job with that. Like, it is very much the writing, direction, and performances show that they understand the world and the characters immensely well. And yeah, the I was quite emotionally engaged throughout, as with the first four. I'm honestly really gonna miss this franchise. That's yeah, got pretty attached to a lot of these characters, and they do a really good job of never letting things get out of hand. I never lost track of, because this does have significant, volume cast of characters. Like there's more characters in this one movie than any of the others, and I suppose arguably you might, let's see. No, I guess not quite combined. I don't think you could combine any two of the other movies, but it gets close. Let's go with that. And yeah, I never lost track, which is very impressive. There are a lot of directors who couldn't handle a fraction of this number of characters and not let it get lost. The cinematography and editing are both excellent. The cinematography does a really good job of making sure, like, nothing is ever really allowed to look boring. And there are, you know, there's at least one time in this movie where there are a lot of characters in one place, and they actually manage to make it feel like, crap, what's the word? Yeah, I didn't lose track of where anyone was, or the kind of, yeah, I guess I've made my point about that. There's also some really glorious sweeping shots. Like there's this one shot that you have to see it to believe it. Like holy crap! I'll talk about it in the spoiler section. Um, yeah, and the editing, I thought they did a really good job. I suppose this editing, writing, it's hard to say exactly where the decision was made, but the fact that there are so many characters that all have to be, keep track of, yeah, they don't overdevelop any, that like the ones that get a lot of dialogue and screen time. It's because there's going to be something significant with them, and there's always payoff to that setup. And yeah, they do a really solid job. There are some that don't have a ton of lines or do a lot of things, like, but you remember them. There's enough there that, yeah. Um, and there's, let's see. Yeah, there are times where there's simply too much if they don't include some voiceover and montage, at least style editing, and that was used very well. That's You got to be careful with that sort of thing, because it can feel like, just recently, I was watching one of the episodes of Marvel Zombies, and while I overall love that miniseries or series, I'm still not sure if we're getting more than one season, but whatever. There's one scene where there was just so much narration, and I was sitting there and I was thinking, we can tell from the visuals what you're saying. You don't have to say it. It just, because it can really take away from what you're watching. A lot of the time, if you're making that decision, you'll want to let it play out. Like narration, it can be crucial. I've talked about how the 2003 Charlize Theron, Patty Jenkins directed movie, Charlize Theron starring Patty Jenkins directed movie Monster, uses narration, and I'm really glad it does, because the things in the narration, if you try to like show that instead of say it, it just wouldn't work as well. And yeah, I'm so happy that they made the decision there. And yeah, here it also works really well. I think that might bring us to the next. Let's see. I think. Yeah, it also it very much understands that there's a time and place for letting a moment, letting the audience sit with a moment, and at other times something should be edited faster, more intense. Yeah, the production value is great. There are things in this that look and feel quite expensive, and that actually does segue very nicely into set designs, locations, costumes, and makeup. Yeah, they look like a lot of money was put into it, and that's really important because there are some things here that you really do not want to, try to do on a low budget. It would just completely fall apart. And and they also communicate a lot, for set design, who decorated it and how, for locations, what is the nature of this, but like, I don't want to spoil it, but I'll just say there's at least one time where you meet a vampire, and like the specific place that they're doing what they're doing communicates a lot. And let's see. So the costumes, right? I meant to say at the top of this. Yeah, I have my memory. Anyway, this was this entire series, all 5 movies, requested by my friend and very long time subscriber. I get, let's see, 8 years by now. Holy crap! Yeah, Arts Cafe. Thanks again. Really, really love these. And yeah, you can already tell I'm not trying to like destroy these movies. Yeah, I'm going to link to some videos in the description box. Fellow progressive YouTubers who made videos some more critical than this. All of them talking about this series, and they make some criticisms that I don't want to spend too much time talking about here. And also some of it I don't feel super qualified to talk about. I know some of it is about um, ethnicity and basically non-white people's culture and such. And yeah, I I'm not the right person to go into detail about it, so I'll just briefly acknowledge here. Others have raised issues, and listening to them talk about it, it does make sense. I don't think that it derails the movie. I don't think anything really does. I will talk. There will be some criticisms, but I think that covers. Yeah, the music. So every single piece of music that plays in this movie, whether it's like score or if it's a song with lyrics, it was all written for the movie. And that really adds something. I mean, it's essentially entirely its own thing. Like I'm fond of the needle drop, where you take a classic piece of music and play over a scene, when I say classic, I don't literally mean that it has to be classical music. It can be just like, a rock or pop song from decades ago. But, I think that works incredibly well in a lot of movies. I'm doing, let's see, I'm trying to do as many Tarantino movies as I can. He's very fond of it. I think he uses it really well. But sometimes it's really, really good idea to just have it be, because I think it works extremely well in this movie, the decision they made. In part because, like, I mean, this is, Bella finally got the things that she was really hoping for in the other movies, and yeah, like it's for her, it's about her, so that works really well. It's somewhat like how sometimes you'll have movies where let's see if I can think of a good, like, for example, I feel like I absolutely love Birds of Prey or The Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. No, I did not have to look up that title. I remember it well because it's just such a perfect title. She titled her own movie and she's telling her own story. So much of that movie is her explaining to the movie-going audience. It's so wonderfully meta. Okay, so this is what happened, and that's that person. Oh no, and just, I'm not saying it's for every movie, but sometimes it works extremely well. And this is one such case. I think I'll just note so I don't forget. One criticism that I saw. This is again one of those, like, at first. Okay, I'm not gonna spend forever on this. At first, I had decided that I was going to read the blurb for every review by a professional critic on Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes for this movie, as I have done many times in the past and will continue to. Pretty quickly, I decided to just skim, because as with some of the other Twilight movies, a lot of it is just people saying, oh, like, with some of the others, they would say, oh, there's more of these coming. Oh, boo-hoo. And then with this one, they were like, oh, it's finally over. And it's like, I don't know. Hopefully there was more interesting stuff inside the actual reviews, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think we need, certainly not more than one person just having that in the blurb. And I forget if the person who writes the review gets to decide what goes in the blurb, but I know that Rotten Tomatoes has a function where you can report if you think that the blurb doesn't represent the review well. So I guess they do represent the reviews, or I guess it's possible that some people who hate Twilight just went and made it look like that. I don't know. Is that review bombing maybe? But one thing, I don't know why, they did, one review at least noted that they felt that this movie didn't have the same spark as the first four now that the love triangle has been resolved. And that is, of course, it's one of those things where, if you have a love triangle, you're going to want to resolve it at some point. If you don't want to be called, is the word hack? Like, if you don't want to be criticized for not resolving the love triangle, and uh, it's one of those things, like in the book, it is also only resolved here it's resolved in the last book, but because they split this last book into two movies, it's resolved in the second to last movie, even if, like, it's only at the very end of that movie that it's resolved. And I personally think they make up for it in other ways, but I do appreciate, a lot of people, and I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with it. If that was the primary reason you were here, I got into it as well. I really wanted to see Bella happy, and, I was, yeah, hoping that would end up being the case. So I do want to acknowledge, I do understand that criticism. And I suppose, look, I get, if you're a professional critic and you really hate a tendency in film or whatever you are review, yeah, whatever you're reviewing, if you recognize, oh, this tendency really frustrates me, I get wanting to vent about that. I just don't think it's super interesting for review. And again, certainly we don't need more than one person noting it, because like, okay, it's a chorus, like, hopefully, like back when I read full reviews, that's not really something I do anymore. Yeah, I saw a lot of different things. Different people saw, or talked about different things. I think that's part of why I read a lot of reviews. I want to hear what different people thought of from the same piece of media. I think that might bring us to the yeah. So the sound editing is also sound design. Misread my own notes there. Is again really excellent. By this point, a lot of what they need they have from the earlier movies, but there are some things here that are new, and yeah, they did a really solid job on it. So the characters remain. Let's see. I mean, yeah, I thought they did a really good job keeping the characters we know consistent, and the new ones, because there are so many. Not, yeah. I guess have I already made that point? I think I've already made that point. Yeah, I thought they did a really good job on, these have always been very much about the characters. That's one of the criticisms some of them have gotten is for like plot. And I think that it's important to make room for movies that are more, and other pieces of media for that matter, that are more about, for example, character. I think as long as there's something for us to latch onto, something for us to engage with, as yeah, I don't know. I think a movie, this movie is not abstract, but I am fond of some movies that are abstract. I think there should be room for them to be almost anything. Just, yeah, I pretty much, the one thing I don't think, I I don't particularly like when they're promoting hatred. Or they're very ignorant about a topic where that can lead to real life harm. Um, yeah, I just watched a video very recently. Let's see, I believe she's called Meduse One, if that's how you pronounce it. I hope. And she made a video talking about like talking about some of the what's it called? The I think the video, yeah, my wrist's very sore right now, so I can't check. But it was something like Ryan Murphy's Ed Gein miniseries already looks bad, or something along those lines. Where she talks about how, you know, a lot of people, and I will have to admit that used to be me. I'm not sure I realized otherwise until I watched her video. Um, it is not true that Psycho was directly based on, or Norman Bates, I guess specifically, was based on Ed Gein. It was just like the concept without details was, helped inspire, writing the book. But yeah, that's it. And now a lot of people, watch that movie and think, oh, but it's based on a real thing. So, the okay, I don't want to spoil the movie, but just, yeah, it led to a lot of a certain kind of xenophobia, bigotry. Um, I guess as I'm already talking about, I might as well plug the. So let's see. There was also Some More News did an episode talking about the Charlie Kirk Memorial / MAGA Rally. I believe that is the title of the video as well. And they pointed out, facts don't care about your feelings, but and they stopped just short of saying, so I'm going to say it because I think I like wordplay. Facts don't care about your feelings, but Trump's feelings trump facts. Because he really badly wants to sue someone who sued him or something along those lines, and even though they couldn't find anything, he's like, no, I don't care. Law and order, schmo and order. Yeah, I think that pretty well covers. I think they did a good job here of having characters that we know in circumstances that are so different that it's interesting. That's one thing when you have 5 movies, you gotta make sure that you have enough interesting stuff to do. Like it's all well and good. This provides a very strong conclusion to the story. That's important, but you also got to have something really interesting along the way, and they do. Right, that was another thing about. So I mentioned in my review of the 4th one that one had enough plot that I felt it made sense to make it an entire movie. I think this one does as well. I was actually there was a point early on where I was a little bit worried, is this going to have too much plot? But like I mentioned when I talked about editing, yeah, they managed to make it work, to make it not overwhelming. The acting is really, really solid, and the pacing is quite good. They manage to have some very different situations, scenarios play out over the course of it in a way that it could easily lose control of the pacing, and it doesn't. The special effects are a little bit mixed. Now, I guess I'm gonna start by noting, so certain things, by this point, even before this one, they perfected the werewolf fur and eyes and such, as well as whenever vampires move extremely fast, and I guess the what's the word, shimmer, the diamond skin thing, and yeah, so that remains a strong point. And there's some new things here that they also show. Most of them look really, really great. One thing that, and this is not really a spoiler because you already know. I mean, okay, so the kid is half vampire, and you have this thing about vampires. Let's see. Once you are bitten, not only are you twice shy, but you do not age. It simply stops dead in its tracks. So it's not really a surprise that their baby also, there's also something about the um yeah, the growth. It's not quite the baby doesn't age the way that us humans do. And they have the kid at yeah, she ages very, very fast. we see multiple stages. We see her as a baby. We see her as, I want to say, 4-year-old was, yeah, something along those lines. And let's see, 8-year-old, I think, is the last of. And for the 8-year-old, they have the actress Mackenzie Foy, and she does a really solid job. She is, and they were also they were fond of her, working with her, and apparently to not have her. Let's see. They didn't want to have her hear a lot of swearing, so they had a swear jar. And after filming, they donated the contents of the swear jar to a children's hospital, which is great. And I have heard that some of the cast do swear other than this. But yeah, when it's just her, there's really no problem. When they are using other, when they're using the let's see, if I am I remembering right that they, I know that at least some of this they did film an actual baby. Right now I'm forgetting if they used fake babies for the regular, like when the actors were like holding the kid. I simply don't remember. Yeah, I think at least some of it was a real baby. Anyway, um, whenever they show the face, instead of showing the face of the actress that played the, instead of showing the baby's face or the 4-year-old's face, they put this. They filmed Mackenzie Foy's face and used de-aging technology, and thus, yeah. So the baby is what a computer has estimated, Mackenzie Foy as a baby looked like, and same for the 4-year-old. And if you may remember, this was, when this came out, de-aging was not completely, it was a problem that hadn't completely been um you know I swear it's not just on my mind, because I'm hoping to watch the third movie in theaters in less than 2 weeks, I want to say it is. But the second Tron movie came out around this time, and yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a big fan of real. Holy crap! Can I really not remember his name? Jeff Bridges, including young Jeff Bridges in the first movie. I put a curse on de-aged Jeff Bridges in the second movie, because that just, and we were saying that at the time. This is not me like saying, oh, yeah. Uh, yeah, I think I did. I'm almost certain I did say it in my like video review of it way back then. It's wild how long time has passed between the different Tron movies. Anyway, yes, the crap, where were we? The first time that I felt like, okay, de-aging, we're there, was in the first Ant-Man movie with the de-aged Michael. I cannot believe. Yeah, my memory's just, anyway. Yeah, him. Because It's the scene is set in like 89, 91 thereabouts, and yeah, I happen to know what he looked like back then because I watched movies from back then. It's basically what he looked like in that Instinct movie. I forget what it's called. Um, yeah, it's one of those things. I get what they were going for. I 100% understand that they really wanted to make sure that there was this very strong continuity of what Renesmee's. Crap. I forget if that was that only said in this one. I think they did settle on that in the fourth movie. Her face across all the ages looks, yeah. Um, it looks the same, but it is just not completely convincing, and it is distracting. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think it would probably have been best if they just asked the audience to accept, because like we are willing to accept a lot. There are a lot of movies and shows and such where, yeah, they just cast an actor who looks somewhat like the other, the older or younger version, and we see that and we're like, sure, that's that character at that age. I accept that. And I believe people would have been willing to accept that here. And it is unfortunate because they are important scenes. And I understand why Renesmee's there. It is important that she is there in those scenes. A lot of it is stuff that very much could affect her life. So it is important that she is there in the frame. Um, yes. So as far as yeah, by now it's not really a spoiler to say, there is at least one action scene in each of the Twilight movies, and they definitely put effort into making sure that we would really remember this, that it would stand out in a big way. And I think they succeeded. I think I think it might be the best action scene of the entire series. And yeah, Condon does a really, really solid job. He understands how to make that kind of stuff really work. And the humor in the film also works really well. And I think that brings us to, so yeah. So the horror aspect also very effective. This has a good chunk of the gnarliest, grisliest stuff that is in these 5 movies. And yeah, it's genuinely like you see some stuff in this that's like, holy crap. It pushes the PG-13 rating in some ways. And yeah, fantasy wise, there's some stuff in here that's just genuinely really fascinating. Like each of these do have some new lore. And I don't know. I remember. I know some people hated a lot of the lore. That was also I saw at least one professional critic in their blurb say, oh, they're just ruining the vampire mythos, as if the vampire mythos hasn't been changing, over time. Like, listen, go back and actually read. I think was it Dracula or was it Nosferatu? Wait, no, Nosferatu's the first movie where they changed names to protect the innocent and avoid a lawsuit. But no, yeah, Dracula is the original book. I haven't done it myself, but you also don't see me saying, oh, you can't change vampire stuff. Certainly, I haven't said in any recent video. I forget if I've ever said. I've had a channel for a holy crap, it has been 16 years, hasn't it? Wow. But yeah. vampire lore, like old lore, it changes over time, and it's this thing where I swear I'm not going to spend forever on this digression, but I just if someone watching this video right now is, or I suppose later, because you can't watch it right now because I'm recording it and it's not a live stream or anything. Anyway, if you need to hear it, as far as oh, they changed the lore. Well, I mean, what makes you think that the lore is now forever going to be like this movie, especially considering, or these movies and books, especially considering that a lot of people really couldn't stand these. Like, the people who can't stand these are obviously not going to go and then make vampire fiction that adheres to the stuff that's different here. Like, I understand that not everybody likes the changes. You don't have to. I personally do, but like I think it's just keep in mind, like, this was written by a woman for like teen girls and such, so she wrote it to make something that would appeal a lot to her and them. And I do not understand why that's so wrong, other than, I mean, a lot of it's misogyny, because like, we dudes have been telling vampire stories for, like, I don't know, 100 years or something by now. Um, why don't women get to also, like, it's just silly, like, listen, there's so much vampire media out there. You can find something that is your kind of vampire media, like, it's kind of like the fact that there was a time, I think by now it's died down, but I don't really follow a lot of people. I don't really pay attention to a lot of spaces where you see this kind of stuff because I like my mental health. Um, there was a time where these movies, the Twilight movies, were more hated for how they treated vampires than Blade Trinity, with like Fabio Dracula. Like, listen, I have some fondness for that movie, and I'm a big fan of. I really, really like the actor who plays Dracula. I can't believe I'm blanking on his name, but he was also in Prison Break, for example, and Equilibrium. He is in Mission Impossible 2, something I somehow always forget. In between, I watch the Mission Impossible movies. I don't know, not like religiously, but maybe once a year, or not always exactly that, but there are movies I can stand to watch many, many times. But yeah, I really do not think that this is. You remember how in that movie there's a vampire that flips off the sun? Like, I'm sorry, as someone who enjoys vampire fiction, have since, I don't know, age 9, maybe. Back then, obviously, it was stuff that wasn't, super intense about it, but, and that's another thing. Like, there's kids films that are like, if you want them really bloody, I believe it's called Hammer Horror. I don't think I've watched any of them, but, Christopher Lee, that makes sense. If you want, like old school, you've got like, Bela Lugosi, I want to say, really, really like, the yeah, very, very different take on, you've got Gary Oldman. Like, how can you complain about a piece of vampire media instead of just going and enjoying a different one? Like, unless it genuinely is, like, I appreciate, obviously, if you're criticizing the actual technical aspects and such, but I don't know that you have much of a leg to stand on with the Twilight movies when it comes to that. Like, again, I mentioned the special effects, and I've talked about the special effects in some of the other movies. That's about it, Other than that, it's just a bunch of man children whining about how there's a vampire story and werewolf media that isn't for them, and it's just like, what are you doing? Is this really how you want to live your life, getting upset about something like this? Just anyway, I think that does just about cover yeah, I thought also the now that they're married, it's not a spoiler to say, yes, there is sexuality, in this, and it pushes it further than you might think for for a PG-13. It was more, so that's quite good. Um, yeah, I think that pretty well covers. But yeah, it is very much a movie where if you thought that some of the others were like a little bit violent, don't watch this one. It's just going to be too much, or like watch it through some of your fingers or something. But yeah, I thought they had some really creative and the right amount use of the vampire superpowers. And I really liked seeing some brand new ones. That was very, very cool. And yeah, I think yeah. So now that I've watched all five, I think each of these is better than the last. There's it's the third one is the one that has the where the action is spaced out the most, and some of the horror elements also, and it's also the first of them where Edward and Jacob are both well aware the other one wants to be with Bella, and there is some good conflict from that. The first one does a really good job introducing the world in a way that's not overwhelming. Like if this had been the first movie I'd watched of Twilight, I'd been like, okay, slow down. And they knew to wait, to hold off for a little while to get to have quite this much detail. This was the right time to because that's really like I'm gonna miss these characters, but I don't feel like there should be more. Like, I understand that she also wrote a book that was like Twilight 1 from Edward's perspective. I haven't read that one. But yeah, it's difficult to close off a story. I think she did a really, really good job. I suppose, does that pretty well cover? I feel like there was one more thing that I wanted to say. Uh, I thought the second one did a good job, like following up on the first one and going to a slightly new place. I liked seeing the budding relationship between Bella and Jacob. The fourth one is the one that I love that it straight goes like Rosemary's Baby, and it was really nice seeing the wedding and seeing them happy together. And then this, a really, really solid finale that gets, it goes to a place that a lot of us wanted it to. And yeah, it has the feeling of finality, which, like when you have movies today, like a lot of them are, if it's got a large young audience and it's like genre fiction, yeah, a lot of them are going to be like, oh, maybe we'll make another one. And this is very much like, no, this is it. We are closing the almost literal book, and I quite appreciate that. Yeah, um, I rate this 8 genuinely engaging and emotional conclusions that has some stuff that I really badly wanted to see, and I'm really glad I got to. Out of 10. And that means that we are now in what I call the thoughts section. So from here on out, there will be spoilers for everything in this movie. So if you're still watching, I'm going to assume that you are ready for me to spoil absolutely everything. So I quite liked seeing more of the vampire, like more of international vampires, because it's been established by this point. Yeah, there's essentially vampires. I don't know, maybe all countries, more or less. And before this one, we'd pretty much just seen the ones in spoons. I mean forks, and the Vulturi in Vatican City. And I don't think that it would have made sense to bring in more nationalities before this one. I really thought it worked to do it here, to have this, like, yeah, if it's big, and so Arts Cafe, you're gonna have to let me know in the comments if you wish. Are the Irish ones represented? Are they a fair representation of your culture? Because I have to admit I am still learning. So yeah, I'm not going to comment too much on uh, them. Let's see. I thought that they did a really good job with how the Volturi. It felt like, no, they are not going to attack again. If for no other reason, self-preservation. Because like it's pretty clear, Arrow, he cares about himself, not necessarily anybody else, but himself. That's a big deal to him. His own safety. And yeah, I thought that I'm really glad that we got the closure on that, because like, yeah, they're introduced in the second movie, and after that, like, there is this threat. In the third one, they manipulate events, but don't get, they don't directly attack because they don't want to, do that. And then, yeah, in this one, they do actually show up, and there's almost a big battle. So yeah, it was something that needed to be resolved. Let's see, and I think, does that pretty well cover? I feel like there's one more thing I maybe wanted to say. Let's see. So, okay, then we have the um, yeah, because in the second movie there was that thing about we're still interested in these two, right? And didn't the fourth one? Am I remembering that right? Didn't it have like a sort of post-credit scene maybe where they talk about, oh, they had a baby? That might be something. Uh, yeah, I think the because that's the thing, like I'm sorry, all these names. Victoria, is that right? The redheaded one. We meet her in the first one. In the second one, there's the threat of her, and then in the third, that's closed off, which was also the right time to, like, you can't more than 3 in a row. That's just too much. No, you gotta, so that does leave Arrow. And I quite like that it didn't end in violence. Yes. So if you're gonna allow me to be corny for just I won't let it take over the video, I swear. I loved how much affection there was in this movie. There at the end, oh, we're not gonna have to fight. Oh, thank goodness. Kiss. Every single couple. I feel like there needs to be like an outtake where someone single is standing like, well, screw me, I guess. This is Valentine's Day all over again. But yeah, and everyone wants to hold the baby, like finally Rosalie smiles in Bella's presence. I know it's not technically the first movie where that happens, but early on it was sad that she wasn't very welcoming of Bella, and we understand why. We get the explanation. But yeah, she loves Renesmee. That, yeah, and there's that thing about no, you can't take him away from me, or I'm gonna take him away from you. So there was something about taking, and the smile. She's just, yeah. And I mean, listen, it is true. Like when there's a baby around, like a lot of us are gonna smile. I remember when my baby cousin was well, a baby, and just, yeah, we all wanted to see the baby, and just like, yeah. Um, I was a kid at the time, but all the adults took turns holding him. I was too little to be holding a baby. Um, yeah, I think that more or less covers it. Yeah. Okay. So I really appreciate the way that this movie does not really like, listen, if you paid for the ticket, you're in for, yeah, like what's going on, because like imagine trying to sit down and follow this movie if it's the first Twilight movie, because like barely anything is like really explained as the I mean, we're not brought up to speed on what happened in the other movies. The only stuff that's explained is the new stuff, um because like they did used to, some of the sequels in this series did, you know yeah, bring people up to speed. But yeah, she wakes up and she's hungry. So the whole hunt bit was great. I am very, very fond of when a piece of media acknowledges, listen, women also self-actualize. Ideally, they should get to self-actualize is what I'm trying to convey, and doing a very poor job of. So yeah, it was great, and the fact that yeah, at first it seems to be going just amazingly, and then it's like, ooh, be careful, because like, yeah, sometimes it is like that, it's not always, yeah, and that's an important, I mean, I mentioned earlier a lot of the fans are teenagers. It's important to impart upon teenagers, every so often, take five, take a look around. Are you happy with how things are going? Are you moving a little bit too fast? Are you going in the exact right direction, or have you veered off course? Because there's a lot of things that can have you, you know, yeah, end up uh, not doing exactly what you hoped. And if you don't catch that in time, years down the line, suddenly it dawns on you, and it might be too late to change. So yeah, I really appreciated that. And it is also, Edward is like, I didn't realize there would be humans this far away from the trail, I think he said. Because yeah, it's this adventurer person who, you know listen, potential food is climbing a mountain. Why is he climbing a mountain? Because he's in love. And yeah, the fact that, so she goes back to the deer, and the there's I can never remember what exact. I'm just gonna call it a big cat because that I feel confident it is, and it's leaping towards the deer, and Bella freaking catches it in midair. So badass. Just yeah. And the deer runs home um, to tell Bambi that Mom survived another day. And let's see yeah, and as soon as she's no longer literally bloodthirsty, she's like, I want to hold my baby, which is wonderful. And um, let's see, I think I'm not sure. Oh, right. Now I remember. Yeah, so they talk about, the thing. There's that thing about, I love how Emmett's, still older brother energy through and through. So he like, there's that thing about um it's because she talked about if she was a vampire, she might be even stronger than than Emmett. And now she gets to actually try, and yeah, I thought they played it exactly right, just enough like tension and build up before she wins the arm wrestling. um I don't know, maybe the CIA has him pushing too many pencils, but yeah, and she just says, you're not did you see that, which is apparently that. Let's see, if I understand correctly from Bill Compton, that line wasn't in the script. The did you see that? That was Kristen Stewart couldn't help but say that after doing the thing in the scene, and he was like, no, leave it in. That's great. And I agree. Yeah. Uh, yes. I love that. Yeah, and then she notes, guess you're no longer the strongest in the family, Emmett. And I love that he isn't like holding a grudge for the rest of it. Like he's still just as supportive as he was before because he understands the fact that he's not the strongest doesn't mean that he's worthless. And that's something, we gotta, there's so many young men right now who think that if they are not the strongest, that somehow they can't have value in any other way. And yeah, it's extremely important to impart this message upon them. So really appreciate um, this, yeah, doing the Lord's work. And I think that pretty well brings us to, let's see. Yeah, seeing her run was also very cool. And yeah, one of the critics noted that Kristen Stewart really dives into like 100% this exploration of what would Bella be like with vampire abilities. Like she carries herself completely differently. One critic did say that they felt that took away from it. I disagree, but I respect that point of view. I mean, I don't know. It was just the blurb, so I didn't see too much detail. But if I had to theorize, maybe they felt, and again, this is not, I'm not, I don't agree with the following. I'm saying theoretically, maybe that reviewer or someone else felt that it happened too fast, and or that just Bella wouldn't end up like that. And I disagree. I think that this is what she was always meant to be. And again, vampirism not real in real life. Um, yeah, but you could also see it as just confidence, because she is much more confident. The way she's talking, like she would, even in the first movie or all the way back, from the start, that's not dissing the first movie, but you know, from the very start, her character will actually stand up for herself and speak up, you know, at least somewhat. But you know, there were these, you know, little ticks and the sense of physical awkwardness, you know, and that's essentially gone. And yeah, I am a big believer in a lot of people just need more confidence, and then of course there's some far-right conservatives who have too much confidence, which can be a problem in the other direction. Um, but you know, yeah, I don't know. Maybe for example, Donald Trump. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad if he had just a tiny bit less confidence. Um, Emma Thorne did a phenomenal video. I think basically the definitive video um, on the whole anti-vaxxer Maha BS. If I recall correctly, the video is called Trump quote unquote cures autism. Um, yeah, quotes around the, you know, double quotes around the word cures. Yeah, the just fantastic tearing apart of the whole absolutely absurd. Yeah, I've been a fan of hers for I guess years by now, and yeah, it was fantastic and absolutely a video that needed to be made. We have got to compel people out of anti-vax because it's going to kill people. But yeah, some people just need more confidence, and yeah, I felt like that was communicated well here. And it's also nice to see. I mean, some people were like, "Oh, you know, she has no talent. It's the way she is, you know, in the as Bella in the movies is just like how she is in real life." Well, I mean, there was a while where she was nervous in like interviews and promotions, you know, and yeah, I've seen the clip where she says, "I guess now you found out that I'm just as awkward in real life," you know. I mean, for one thing, maybe she was joking, and for another, maybe it changed over time. I mean, she was like 17 when they started making these. There's a lot of people around that age who are still awkward and later become more confident. Like, I feel like in more recent years, we've definitely seen her very confident, and it's fantastic. It's so great to see. Like, she really she's come into her own in a just wonderful way. She's delivered some of my favorite acting performances. Yeah, I think that might cover the yeah. So the yes, there's the thing about, you know, happy birthday. I stopped aging 3 days ago. Well, we're celebrating, so suck it up. I love how, like, consistently, every single time there is some, like, big, you know, yeah, Alice is always going to be there to celebrate. You know, no, this is an important occasion. You know, we're going to plan your wedding carefully. You are going to celebrate your birthday. You know, all these things, just love it. I we should all have someone in our lives that just really encourages us, because it is important. Every so often you have to stop and actually appreciate life. You know, we got to be careful not to be in such a rush all the time. You know, capitalism wants us to just only think about work and, oh, are we, you know, is it enough and all this stuff, when, like, with stuff like UBI, and I appreciate that right now it's, you know, it wouldn't work perfectly. I want to say it was Leisha Miller who did a really solid video explaining some of the issues. I am of the opinion that those issues can be worked out, and I think it is well worth it. I appreciate, listen, I'm not telling someone who lives paycheck to paycheck, something I am extremely fortunate to not, yeah, experience. If you are living paycheck to paycheck and you are really struggling to find, you know, you can't really slow down and appreciate life. I am not telling you that you're wrong. I'm saying you shouldn't have to live like that. That's the fault of capitalism. And that's part of what we have to change. Obviously not with violence. It's, I guess it's going to be a while before us lefties are not going to be called upon to point out, hey, we don't advocate for violence. We do advocate for gun control. And yes, obviously, it was terrible that Charlie Kirk was shot. I wish he was still alive. I wish that I feel so bad for yeah, his offspring. It's terrible that nobody should lose either of their parents at a young age. You know, like ideally we should all like live to be 100 and like peacefully sleep into wait, crap. Is that how you say it in English? That's how we say it in Danish. Uh, die in our sleep. That's the American way to say it, I think. Yeah, but I have not seen particularly convincing evidence that Tyler was left-wing or motivated by that. I've seen multiple different theories. And listen, hypothetically, maybe Tyler was a leftist. Maybe he was very far left. He was like a communist, and he wanted to start a violent revolution to overthrow capitalism. Well, in that case, I 100% am against that approach. I condemn his actions. I condemn his actions regardless of what the reason was. See, conservatives, you can do that. That's how easy it is. You can just say, I think that was wrong. You don't have to laugh when your political opponents are harmed and even murdered, because that's kind of just a habit by now. I've seen so many conservatives, you know, for example, the attack on Paul Pelosi and George Floyd, Trayvon Martin. You know, there's so many where they just they lap it up. They love that someone they don't like was brutally attacked, maybe even murdered. And that's just not healthy. And I've seen it from much more prominent conservatives than leftists. I am aware. I think I did say in one of my other videos, mea culpa. I made a mistake. See, again, it's doable, conservatives. One of the other videos where I mentioned Charlie Kirk being murdered, I think I said that we on the left don't, are not happy when our opponents are killed. I have since become aware, and that's something there's that thing about out of sight, out of mind. There's a lot of leftist spaces that I do not pay attention to. For stuff like TikTok and Twitter, I'm not interested in following those. And I forgot that those, those have leftists that express things that I do not. When I made that video, what I was thinking was, I haven't personally seen any, and I follow like dozens of leftists. Some, not quite as far left as some equally as far left, but a different brand, that I maybe disagree with. But I didn't see even one of them celebrate it. Every single one that mentioned it condemned it. So yes, I am now aware that there are some who laughed. Although, that's again the thing. That was part of it also. I heard about, like, I think it's called Charlie's Murders. Okay, I realize this is a digression. I'm going to try to close it off soon. I think it was called Charlie's Murders. And, like, I think it was the very first one. It was like, well, that's not someone celebrating his death. That's just someone pointing out that he wasn't an angel. That doesn't mean that they're happy about it. But yes, I have now seen, like, video clips where someone is, like, laughing or saying, that yeah. So I personally would not do that. I don't really blame members of minorities who were targeted by Kirk, whose lives were made worse. Like, Charlie Kirk did say some terrible things about minorities. He chuckled, I guess even laughed, as he was saying, well, you want to say that we should have empathy. Well, the Bible, what was it, the verse right before the one you quote says that we should stone to death gay people. And he's laughing, and it's like, what are you doing? Do you really think this is like some compelling argument? Let's see, I think it was, yeah, because it was like a response to Miss Rachel, I think, who, and it's like, that's your argument? Yeah, you can listen, the Bible says everything. You can use the Bible to argue for almost anything because it's been written by so many different people in different times arguing for different things. Yeah, it's, and like, it's legitimately, like, chilling to me when someone says that Christians shouldn't have empathy. Okay, explain to me how you're a Christian if you don't have empathy. Like, explain it to me like I'm four, because I do not understand how you think you can call yourself a Christian if you have no empathy, if you think empathy is a bad thing. Like, what did Jesus say that made you personally think zero empathy is? Oh, was it the part that he killed a tree that didn't have fruit out of season? Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, I think, yeah, I think I've made my point by now. And it's also just so hypocritical of conservative Christians in America to say, oh, look at the left celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. As I've already mentioned, prominent conservative figures will openly celebrate the deaths, including sometimes murders, of people that they just have some problem with, often for no good frickin' reason at all. Okay, 100% done with the digression. So, yeah, Bella is given the key, and they go, and it's just this wonderful little place. It's so romantic. And they move around, and it's also on the commentary track. Condon emphasizes it was important to them that it feel like a dream come true, but not get into, like, almost parody. You don't want to push it so far that it feels ridiculous. And I think they nailed it, because it easily could have ended up feeling okay, um and yeah, she gets the full tour, and then the bed, and she says, I thought vampires didn't sleep, and he's like, it's not for sleeping. They're so great together. And yeah, they do indeed have sex again, and goes about as far as a PG-13 will allow. And yeah, you have the line about, you really were holding back before. And, if one were to try to equate that to a real life thing, I am aware that there are a number of men who, the way that they are around women, including sexually, changes once he's made a serious commitment to her, you know. I think that might just about cover. Right, and the thing about, so, I mean, we could kind of just have sex forever, and there's the thing about, well, was it Alice and Jasper? I think they say, a decade before we could stand to be around them. I think we're going to be worse. I think so too. Just, yeah, you know, the honeymoon may be over, but the honeymoon period absolutely is not. And also, her being, I mean, she was already, the sex was, in part very much something she wanted in the fourth movie, but here we also see, more, even more desire. And I've mentioned before, I think even in videos on, I think in my video on the fourth movie, I talked about, yeah, women other than asexuals. I am not qualified to talk about asexuals. So the following, I'm sorry, it's going to be very, I want to say it's called allosexual. I hope, yeah. A lot of women, allosexual women do feel desire. Some might suppress it, but that doesn't actually remove it, and we shouldn't seek to remove it. Yeah, I think it is extremely important to depict it so that we can normalize and have conversations about it. Because, like, listen, if you can't accept that women have desire, then if the woman you're with is feeling more or less desire than you think, that, if it feels off, you can't have a conversation about it because you can't even acknowledge it. We got to acknowledge problems in order to solve them. And here we also see that her sexual or sex drive is increased by the vampirism, and or I suppose it's the fact that they don't have to take breaks is what makes it bigger. But yeah, again, if we're talking about self-actualization, yeah, sometimes, not always, when someone self-actualizes, yeah, it might affect for example, their sex drive. I'm not trying to put, like, it doesn't happen for everyone, so don't, like, feel entitled to that happening or something, but yeah, it does for some. I think that covers that. So when Edward and Renesmee sit at the piano and they both play it together, and he plays some of the love song that he made for Bella, it's just so sweet. Just this piece expressing his love and dedication and devotion to both of them, and just, if you are a parent and you are musically inclined, don't like push your kid into it, but if your kid shows an interest, yes, play instrument with your child. Like, it can be such a wonderful thing. When yeah, I think that does bring us to, yeah, them talking to Charlie is also, the thing with, yeah, Jacob, arrives and, goes to talk to Charlie, and yeah, so Bella, oh no, she's fine. Well, why didn't you say so? Well, I'm going to see her right now. What are you talking about? You're not making any sense, and yeah, so he he makes the claim, and so he'll be here in 10 minutes. And yeah, Condon on the commentary track, points out they really nail the comedic timing. Like both Billy and Taylor just nail it. Like Billy is like, what are you doing? Please stop. And Taylor, this thing of like, well, I mean, here goes nothing. I don't really want to do this, but I guess this is the only way to resolve this issue. And the thing of it, like, turning into a giant wolf and jumping through the air, and Mustache Dad like sits down like, and then the just lying in front of him, like, the way that, I've never owned a dog personally. I don't know. When I was younger, maybe it would have been good, but I've babysat a dog once, and they're wonderful creatures. I've spent enough time around dogs to know, yeah, when the dog, is lying down like that and looking at you, that is like very much I'm not going to attack you, just like a friendly thing. So they did great on that. That is one thing. I don't know. It's I just want to note, every single time we heard one of the wolves do the little whine, God, it just cuts so deep. It's like, no, don't hurt a dog. How can you hurt a dog? What is wrong with you? Like, literally. I think that might, but yeah, that is part of the point. We are meant to feel bad for them. But yeah, the thing about, okay, so she's gonna see Charlie. I think it's Alice who says, okay, act human. And there's the thing, why don't you practice? You can sit down and cross your legs. And she accidentally speedruns because it's like, well, I'm that good at the game by now. How am I supposed to? So yeah, she sits down, and then I forget if it's only Alice, but at least Alice basically says the things that, like, some people criticized Bella for doing. So like, for example, the what was it, like, blink 3 times a minute. Yeah. I mentioned in the other videos, I think it works for the character. But yeah, I appreciate them poking a little fun at themselves. And the thing about, and then she forcibly blinks like 3 times within 3 seconds, and it's like, how's that good? And Jake with for a cartoon character, perfect, no notes. Right, I also did like, yeah, she's like, now that I'm a vampire, I see what the others mean. You do stink. Listen, dogs have they smell a certain way. You get used to it, don't? But no, that was funny. Right. And I guess I'll just briefly finish on. So Charlie, arrives, and yeah, her, sitting, and you can see, like, Charlie doesn't think much of it, but or think much about it, but we notice, oh, she's like forcibly holding one of her wrists with the other hand, like she's keeping herself from lunging at him, because of the bloodlust, which is actually more of a teenager thing than a vampire thing, when it comes to parents, maybe especially dads. But yeah, he accepts she's okay, and, oh, adopted a niece. Okay. She has your eyes? I guess I'm not supposed to think about that. Yeah. Right. So I am not going to talk too much about the imprinting thing in this video. Yeah. I did think, Lindsay Ellis points out, I mean, they do criticize it. Like, Bella specifically says, Jacob, what is wrong with you? And Edward is like, I don't know, maybe she should just kill Jacob. That was funny. Well, do you think Edward would let me live if he didn't trust me? Still deciding. And which is also a fun little bit of character because yeah, like okay, hypothetically, Edward is so furious with Jacob that he kills Jacob. Bella comes to, is like, "Where's Jacob?" And Edward says, "Well, I killed him." Okay, pretty sure that would make her very angry, understandably so, at Edward. But if he waits for her to find out after she's a vampire, yeah, that, yeah. And yeah, she lays it out very nicely. And yeah, I don't know. I thought it was very effective seeing. I thought Kristen Stewart did a really great job. I can never remember. So Anya Taylor-Joy, in an interview about The Menu, which you should watch, it's amazing, talked about, and I can never remember if she referred to it as feminine rage or female rage, but she pointed out, no, women get angry and like physical angry. And she wanted to make sure that was in the movie, and we see it also here. And I mean, the book was written by a woman, the script, the adaptation was written by another woman. So yeah, it feels what's the word? Authentic. And I don't know. I got the sense that we were supposed to agree more with her than him. I didn't get the sense that we were supposed to think of her as like a out of control woman. Watch out, typical female. No, it's just like, yeah, this is a reasonable reaction. Obviously, she'd be angry. It's a very serious issue. So yeah, I thought they did a really good job on that. And yeah, the fact that the other wolves show up and there's, yeah, it can only go so far, and ultimately she is able to accept the idea. Then we have the, let's see, does that bring us to the, yes, I think that, yeah, so they go and play with Renesmee, and she does, yeah, she makes like one of the Mario brothers and makes a very impressive leap. And yeah, Maggie Grace sees it, and we learn not very long after what it is that she's concerned about, and she leaves. And yeah, they're like, well, I mean, she's family. She's gonna be here at Thanksgiving ranting and raving about, how we just gotta keep deporting hardworking people who do jobs that native-born Americans won't do. Okay, so in that metaphor, she was a racist uncle. I'm not talking about like women being racist. Although, okay, some white women, white feminism, okay, there is some racism there. I don't know. I mean, I guess she did look a little bit like she might call the cops on someone for telling her to leash the dog. But yeah, she leaves, and let's see. I believe, yes, we get the explanation before we see her with the Volturi. I think let's go with that. That's yeah. So more wonderful lore, and yeah, I mean, okay, the immortal children. Holy crap! Like, was the whole villages were burnt down, and we see this tiny little baby, and Dakota Fanning throwing this kid onto a fire. Like, holy crap! They really don't hold back. I appreciate them going. They really went as far as they could on a PG-13, and yeah, it is one of the most horrific images the entire series has. So very nicely done on that. And I also thought they did a good job of, like, yeah, we understand why the Volturi are so dead set on, a dead Renesmee. Let's see. Yes, I think that does bring us to... Yes. So, Maggie Grace, goes, yeah. And the Volturi at first are like, do we have to do this right now? They're kind of over it. And she's like, I would like to report a crime. And, one of the Volturi is like, listen, we already know about the TV show Lost. Can we move on, please? Honestly, the reviewer who's using this metaphor to criticize Lost yet again is trying to move on from criticizing Lost. So if we could, maybe he can too. Was that too meta? And yeah, so yeah, it is very understandable. If very unfortunate that they do. Yeah, and it makes sense. How could she know that this was not an immortal child? So yeah, they they're going to attack, and let's see, we have the thing about, what's the word? So yeah, Alice and Jasper disappear. And there's that thing about, left a message, and it says, leave, bring as many witnesses as you can before the snow settles. Was that what it is? Something like that. And yeah, very, very cool meeting all these new vampires. So happy to get to see Rami Malek in something again. I keep being unfortunate, and so both this and Oppenheimer, he doesn't appear that much, though he is important. Yeah, I thought they did a really great job on, he shows the water bending, which I read in IMDb trivia. I forget the exact details, but apparently, let's see, did he maybe do a voice role for Legend of Korra, which also has water benders? Maybe he even played a water bender. I forget. I read it days ago. But and that is how fast I'm able to forget these days. But I really appreciated that when he lets the water fall, they did have they had a practical bit of, and in the behind the scenes on the DVD, you can see, they had a tank of water, and then they, empty it mostly into the water that was already there. But yeah, there's some splashback, so the actors can, like, take a few steps back, and yeah, that helps sell the effect very nicely. Yeah. And yeah, the idea of the yeah, there's the one who can make you see anything or nothing, and yeah, very, very nice visual effects there, very convincing. And I think that more or less, yeah. Leap Haste, man. Freaking Leap Haste. So awesome. I'm so glad I get to see him and stuff. And he's just like, I'm sorry. Okay, hypothetically, let's picture a world. Maybe close your eyes. If you can still see me, that means you didn't close them yet. Seriously, if you aren't already, you gotta watch Maggie Mayfish on Nebula's Amy's Dead End Dream House. It's amazing. I made a reference to it just now. The thing with closing eyes, and anyway. if you can still see, then your eyes aren't closed. That's a reference to that. Anyway, yeah, the picture every single time that a piece of fantasy fiction that is well produced has a character poorly paced to play, he gets to play it. Is that not like heaven? Like, he's just so freaking good. Like, here and in The Hobbit. I also love him in, I guess an argument could be made that there's fantastical elements. It's sort of magical realism. The Fall, just yeah, absolutely amazing. I love when he pops up and stuff, and he's one of the best characters too. Like, they catch him and he's like, I hated the first British invasion. It's like, well, what about the Beatles? And he eventually does let go. Like, at first he's like, well, we can keep having this conversation. I don't know how much air is left in this guy's lungs, but we can chat until he passes out, sure. And eventually he lets him go, and then he catches him and like freaking kills him. And that was also on the Condon on the commentary track. He talked about, well, we don't get to see that many vampires killing humans, so I wanted that in there. And yeah, that helps give this character some edge, And yeah, it was also cool with the one who like immediately goes to the attic, and Dracula 1 and 2 just like, yeah, they nail it. It just they sound like classical Dracula, It's just so good having, yeah. And the idea that no, they do there are Draculas in the Twilight universe, they just aren't in America. Why would they be, but yeah, they agree to help, provided that the Cullens do what they can to reintroduce the Transylvania twist. And you're welcome for having that song stuck in your head now. I saw there was a wonderful, I think that might have been a tweet. Occasionally there are some really great tweets. You've never heard the Monster Mash. You've heard a song about the Monster Mash. But I think that more or less covers. Yeah, it was great seeing. Yeah, again, I think we did meet them. Yeah, we met them briefly in the fourth one, but the sisters of Maggie Grace, and I thought it was a great idea. This thing of, because that's the thing. Like, small children sometimes like to put their hand on, our cheek, for example, and the idea that Renesmee uses that as a way to communicate. And that's also, yeah, small children, before they develop the ability to speak, they communicate non-verbally, and that's important to be attuned to as a parent. And I appreciate I'm not saying that's easy, but yeah, I really appreciate it getting, this sort of, metaphorical treatment kind of thing, and yeah, she puts her hand on Bella's cheek and shows her birth, which that's such a clever, so that's how they recruit. They go around and they prove, see, she's not an immortal child. She's like half immortal. If you want someone who is like perhaps not just a immortal, but one of the immortals, well, Emmett's right there. Kellen Lutz is in that movie too. But yeah, not an immortal child, so be a witness. I thought they did a good job on that. Like the yeah, the two Draculas. Christopher and Gary, they both badly want to fight. But others are like, well, I don't know about fighting, but yeah, okay, witness, sure. And I feel like there's something great to see Charlie and Sue together and happy. Yeah, I think that does actually bring us to the so yeah. There's the thing about um, I'm afraid I forget his name, but the guy who procures things, and Bella, the thing about oh, Merchant of Venice. Oh, let's see the book, and yeah, the other, and she burns the whole, careful, you don't want to encourage the Trump administration to burn books. There was I think it was Seth Meyers who did, about the ridiculous Trump UK trip. Said I would love for a heckler to shout, "Name your favorite Kipling." But yeah, so she knows, and only she knows, and she goes to and oh, it's Renesmee and it's Jacob. And that is, of course, at this point she has accepted that, yes, he will keep her safe. He is not going to hurt her or let harm come upon her by his inaction. But yeah, she was hoping to have more time with, and that's, again, such a great metaphor, because like, I'm not a father myself. But I understand that one of the most difficult things as for any parent, regardless of their yeah, whether they're male, female, non-binary, watching their child, like it's essentially a metaphor for like, well, the kid's 18 now, they're going out, they're moving out, you're not going to see them so much anymore. Yeah. And I think that pretty well covers the right. Also, I want to briefly note. So yeah. Now that she's a vampire, Bella can actually hurt Jacob. Last time she tried punching him, she hurt herself, not him. Now it's not so much. That's not so much the case, and that was also a great bit of setup and payoff. I didn't even think about at the time that yeah, it might be set up. But the let's see. I think pretty well brings us. I feel like there's one more thing I wanted to say. But yeah, so and the thing about, well, Jasper was very specific, and she's like, no, it was my mistake. He, you did what you were supposed to, and that's also, we gotta normalize. Listen, if a service worker, and I appreciate it's not, metaphorically, I appreciate this is not technically a service worker. If a service worker does the thing that they're supposed to do, and you wish they had done more, but it's like, well, they can't do more, don't yell at them. Just say, well, thank you. And, yeah. Tip them if that is if it's one of those situations. Otherwise, just, pay and move on. But don't harass them when they're doing their job. Like, your issue is with the manager or CEO or something. Like, contact them. Join a protest. That's the thing. That's one. Again, I swear, I'm gonna move on very shortly. But one of the things that annoys me so much about conservatives in America, when they have an issue, they will just yell at the wrong person about it, and then they'll make fun of us for trying to convey our displeasure to the right people. Like, what are you doing? You are never going to get results like that. Honestly, sometimes I don't even know if they're trying to get results or if they're just letting off steam. I feel like there's some conservatives, like after a while, they don't expect things to get better. So they're just going to release the tension by screaming at someone who absolutely does not deserve it, which is just not healthy. Anyway, I think that pretty well brings us. Yes. So, she, sets up like she puts money and the passports and that stuff in the backpack, and yeah, Mr. Attic is like, "Are you sure about this? It's yeah." And she explains it to Renesmee, and the celebrating Christmas. I'm really one of the characters I'm gonna miss. I'm gonna miss every major character, but Mustache Dad, like, just so wonderful. The thing about here's your present. We didn't have time to wrap it, and before he's even had a chance to open it, they just blow. Oh, by the way, here's what the present is. Like, okay, and yeah, the thing about oh, it's we you get to go fishing for, was it 5 days? I can't. My, tomorrow. No, no. We contacted your work. Sneaky. Are you trying to get rid of me? 'Cause it's working. Just that little pregnant pause. That little pregnant with a half vampire child pause. Wonderful. Because it's just a dad joke. He's not actually suspicious. He's just jazzed about getting to go fishing, man. Yeah, that was, and that's also genuinely really sweet. I mean, okay, they have infinity money, I get that, but not everybody who has a lot of money chooses to use it to make people in their lives happy. Yeah, and then they head towards, they make camp, and Benjamin, I think was his name, uses the he starts the fire, and Jacob is like, that's what I'm talking about, just like, yeah. And they swap war stories, and Lee Pei's coming in. War stories? Name any war. And he was apparently about to bite Custer. That's awesome. Oh my god. Can you imagine? Wow. And and then one of Maggie Grace's sisters, goes, well, you needed help in the war, and yeah, Gary and Christopher, talk about, they burnt our castles 1,500 years ago. Maybe they did us a favor. We've been waiting to repay the favor. Fantastic, because it's one of those things, like, it's a common phrase, let's repay the favor, obviously sarcastic, saying it's not really a favor, but it's not every time that someone will say, no, like, sort of a favor, I guess, before saying let's repay the favor. I'm quite fond of that. Yeah. So they, and I also appreciate the thing about, I think Alice and Jasper left to protect us. It's less likely that Arrow is going to kill everyone and then take Alice if she's just not there. That's his reason. And that was also very clever. The thing about, well, he's amassing an army. Oh, he is. Oops. And the guy putting out, well, I mean, I didn't even realize it was a pattern, but yeah, he'll find them guilty of something, and then kill all except the most gifted one. And that's, I mean, sounds a lot like something that some powerful countries have actually done in the real world. I mean, let's see. Is that closer to colonialism or other types of genocide. I'm not entirely sure exactly what it's equivalent to, but I do feel like they're saying, hey, this is something that's actually happened, and we shouldn't celebrate the people who did it. We should try to learn from it and make sure it never happens again, you know. And that's another thing. Like, you can be proud of your country's history without being an actual, like, nationalist. You know, I love Denmark. I'm very proud of a lot of things about my country. I'm not making excuses for how some, you know, I don't know, potentially my own ancestors, certainly, if not my own ancestors, some, you know, people, yeah, a while back treated the people of Greenland really badly, you know. I'm not making excuses for that. I'm really glad that the truth is coming out and that they there's more of a chance of them getting to make these decisions for themselves as old people should be able to, you know. Um, I think that pretty well brings us to the so yeah, they get to the field and just the camera this was the camera move I was referring to in the review, swoops down towards the big and, you know, empty field and you know, moves across, and then, you know, let's see, I think there's a pan and then they're just there. Very, very cool. And the way that the filming and editing of the Vulturi arriving was also so freaking cool. I really like how Dakota keeps showing up every so often. Like, I think it's every time we see Vulturi, we see her. She only has one line, one word, in fact, but she makes a meal of it. And yeah, like, her eyes convey a lot. Yeah, I think that pretty well brings us to so yeah, they are they're standing opposite each other, and Michael Sheen, just like, what a blessing, what a wonderful, he makes the world a better place. Yeah, just the way he reacts to seeing, you know, the various, you know, the I don't think I can even properly imitate it, but the thing, and, you know, just his joy, like, he's so happy he's happy as a clam, like he is in seventh heaven, or would be if he still had soul. um but yeah, the and she proves it, you know. And I like the fact that, you know, they said, well, look, you can see the rose in her cheeks, you know, which is also nicely done, because that does underline, hey, we're actually using makeup on literally every single vampire character to hide the rose in the cheeks, you know. So yeah, um, and they've mastered that by now. Yeah, it was always quite good. It's more, some older movies were not the best at making someone look pale without just making it look like, well, I don't know, I guess they were called away in the middle of baking something. But the Agatha the flower is what I'm trying to reference. But the yeah, I think, yes, the you know, as soon as that said, you know, one of the Vulturi says uh, something like scam, MLM, something along those lines. You know, he doesn't believe it. He thinks it's fake. It's fake. And that is, of course, something that, so I'm definitely reading the Vulturi as fascists. There are a number of fascists. You can literally produce evidence. I've been in this situation myself. You can carefully provide all the evidence, and they'll just say, no, it's fake. And for a number of fascists, it's because that's what they would do. They would just make something fake, and what's the word? They would yeah, to use that as you know, to motivate. We've seen that a lot. Yeah, Trump and his, staff and such, will sometimes just try to pass something fake off as being real in order to, I mean, I know the news cycle moves fast, so maybe you forgot, but remember when Trump literally, okay, so there's a couple of, I swear I'm not going to spend forever on it, but there was oh no, look, there's MS-13 written across the fingers. You can see right there in the picture. And like the journalist is like, no, but it's Photoshop. And Trump is basically like, but I can see it with my eyes, so it must be real. Like, and he said, oh, look at all those dead people. Your country is letting poor innocent white people be slaughtered by black people. And like, yeah, obviously, if that was happening, that would be terrible. But it's not. Like, if there are so many terrible things going on that you have to fix, why are you lying about so many of them? Shouldn't they speak for themselves? Shouldn't it be enough? Shouldn't the truth be enough? And that's something the movie is also saying. Shouldn't the truth be sufficient? And I love that. That's such an important message. We need that. We needed it back when the movie came out. We need it now. We'll need it in 100 years. We're always going to need people pointing out how important the truth is. And yeah, so she literally, like, Renesmee shows the birth, and he, like, one of the other Vulturi is like, but that's fake too. And I did like, Arrow saying, are you questioning me, Master Jedi? And the other, is like, oh, it's, maybe not. Maybe, no. And I think that pretty well brings us to, so yeah, then they try to provoke a battle because, that's, sadly, fascists love, they worship violence. They have this idea that violence is going to, like, forge, a better world. And it's just like, in real life, violence almost never solves the problem. It usually just kicks the can down the road. Like, if you're, hypothetically, let's say, oh, that person is really harmful, and you kill them, well, what about someone who loves that person? What if they try to kill you or someone you care about, and then you've started a blood feud? Restorative justice and empathy are the way to solve problems. We have to understand things and then think about how we properly solve them. Violence should always be an absolute last resort. I'm not saying it's never necessary. World War II, it was necessary to stop Hitler. It was absolutely necessary. If we had not fought back, and it's silly for me to say we, I wasn't even born. If my ancestors, well, we were Danish, so we were occupied. But if Americans back then had not been willing to fight, I mean, I feel like the Third Reich would probably eventually have burnt itself out. Like, Hitler was self-sabotaging a lot. That's one of the things about, like, Nazis. They are so bad at almost everything they do. Like, Hitler knew how to scream and shout. And that's about it. It was right time, right place more than talent that got him where he ended up. But yeah, it was necessary to fight him and stop the Nazis. I really, really hope it's not going to come to violence to stop present day Nazis, but I'm sorry, but that really does end up, I and many other leftists are going to do everything in our power to make sure it doesn't come to that. But let's see. Stonewall was necessary, So I'm absolutely not saying that it never, ever works, but Stonewall and fighting the Nazis with violence in World War II were the absolute last resort. There was nothing else that could be done. They tried letting Hitler just like burn himself out, but he just kept conquering. And he was not interested in a diplomatic solution. He wanted to conquer. That much is very, very clear today, and a number of people back then realized as well. But so they try, the Volturi try to provoke the Denali sisters. Is that their name? Maybe suddenly that I feel like that might be their name. By they bring out Maggie Grace, and the the thing is that the child that you identified, and she's like, my memory's a little hazy, but no, she seriously though, she she says, well, it's it's little one. She was a little one, but she grew. I can't say for sure if it's the same one, but listen, the mistake is mine. I fully accept blame, and they execute her, and again, very effective visual with the freaking fire, like holy crap. And of course, the other Denali sisters start to they're gonna attack. Liam Neeson is just off screen, like loading his gun. But thankfully they are, I'm afraid I forget exactly who said it, but one of them is able to, one of the Cullens, I think, is able to talk it out. Yeah. Right. I also really love when, okay, so let's see. Bella, Edward, and Renesmee walk into a bar and then go up to see Arrow, and Emmett comes with. Older brother energy, like, listen, you are not going to hurt my little brother. And his wife, who, beat my ass, like, kick my ass in arm wrestling, because he's still supporting, the fact that she's physically stronger doesn't mean he's not going to support. Absolutely love it. Positive masculinity, more that's something for young men to emulate, instead of frickin' Andrew Tate. Okay, so I'm sorry, but I swear I'm not going to spend forever on it, but here in Denmark, there were recently some drones in the airport, and Andrew Tate said that we should have shot them down where they might hit the planes, some of which had people in them. What are you on? Testosterone and steroids. Well, I don't know about steroids, but he's genuinely just not thinking straight. Like, it's what an absurd thing to say. Like, yeah, he thinks machismo can solve everything, when in reality it solves almost nothing. It tends to just make things worse. But and then Alice shows up with and she says, I can show you the world if you let us go. And she puts her hand on, and I will admit, they did a really clever thing there. So technically we don't realize right away. There's several minutes pass. I didn't like time it or anything. I was way too engaged in the action, but for a number of minutes there, they had us fooled. It really did look like the battle was actually going on, and then yeah, after we've seen the whole thing, then we cut back to, and yeah, that was what she showed him, you know. We were inside the vision, and there was no visual indicator before the end of the vision that that was what was going on. So it's one of those things. It's arguably a cheat, and it's the kind of thing, like, there's at least one other movie where I absolutely despise that they did it like that, but I do think the fact that, like, afterwards there is still, you know, yeah, she shows him, you are going to lose the battle if you try to fight. Afterwards they get to question, you know, another half mortal child, and or yeah, someone who was a half mortal who was a child, you know, and they are satisfied with the answers. And I am going to talk in detail about the battle. Don't worry. But before that, I do want to talk about, so basically, the comment on the commentary track, Bill Condon talks about, so in, or was in the, somewhere on the DVD, Bill Condon talks about, in the book there is no battle. They talk, and the Volturi, you know, are swayed by conversation, and that's in part because Stephanie Meyer, you know, firmly believes we have to talk things out, and he realized that might feel like an anticlimax after all this build-up. So he, you know, with her permission, had this, you know, way around, and it is a very clever way around because it doesn't violate any rule that's been established, you know. It's not even like by the time this was made, audiences were ready to accept, hey, sometimes we'll switch into a dream or hallucination or something without like a clear visual cue. Like there used to be, you know, yeah, back in the day, they thought, oh, audiences will be confused, and maybe some would have, if we don't show a clear, you know, so if you're going into a dream or a flashback or something, you have to do that wavy fade thing, you know, where everything gets blurry, and then you go to the dream or out of the dream. And yeah, by the time this was made, let's see, I think was it the Thin Red Line? I forget. But there was a movie where they just went back and forth between. You know, Christopher Nolan uses it a bunch as well to very very great effect. But yeah, I thought it was a clever way. You know, it's sort of having its cake and eating it too. But I'd be lying if I claimed that I didn't enjoy the battle. But yes, basically, ultimately, it is still, they are still swayed by words. Like, also the vision, yes, but it's, you know, it's not until they question the other, yeah, the half mortal, you know, 150-year-old former child. Yeah, they are convinced to not fight with reasoning and evidence. And while sadly it doesn't always go like that in real life, that is what we should strive towards. You know, can you imagine how wonderful the world could be if, when there was conflict, we just had conversations and didn't, you know, commit violent acts towards each other, or threaten or spread lies that could lead to violence, and all this crap that is not only trait of fascism, but can be a trait of fascism. Yeah, fascism likes to do that, you know, and yeah, like the fact that they if not for the sufficient evidence, yes, the Volturi would have attacked, you know, um, and I mean, no, I think that might be everything that I really want to say about it. yeah, it's just I 100% agree with Stephanie on that. And I do think it is very so a woman writes a book about this big conflict, and she writes that they talk it out. And then a man comes along to direct the movie, and he's like, no, they should fight. I don't know. I'm sorry. I swear it's not gender essentialism. Gender essentialism is ridiculous, but there is something to socialization. We men are like when we're children, we're encouraged to like, violence is awesome. You should, dominate and yeah, women and girls are encouraged to communicate and try to resolve problems and such. Um, yeah, I think that might more or less cover. Uh, let's see. But yeah, I mean, I do think it is definitely one of the ways that we stop fascism is to sway enough fascists. And I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it's your job personally, especially if you're already like, if you're dealing with a lot. It's not, you don't have to carry that burden. Others of us will. Communism, it's a community. We share the burdens and spoils. If you know someone that you think you might be able to convince out of fascism with, yeah, appeals to empathy, with evidence, with the truth, if you have it in you, and I don't blame you if you don't, but if you have it in you, please try, because that is like, fascists win when the truth is unclear, when violence is a matter of course, when we don't have the hard-won freedoms, and we gotta do what we can to not let that happen. Again, non-violently. I hope that's clear. Because that's I can't name the movie without spoiling it because it's technically the ending. But there is another movie where they actually, yeah, let's see. In that one, it's technically not conversation, but yeah, basically like the good guy wins by compelling all of the soldiers for the bad guy to no longer want to fight, and that is like, I have to admit, I didn't realize until I read, let's see, read or saw, but someone communicated, that is actually how a lot of wars ended. It wasn't with one grand final battle. That's often war propaganda's version of it, because they want you to keep fighting. A lot of the time it's because people just didn't want to fight anymore, if enough people refuse to fight. That's part of why, how, like, I think it was both world wars, desertion was punishable by death. Like, they literally, think about that, they literally had to tell soldiers, if you don't kill who we tell you to kill, we'll kill you. And this is after they already told the soldiers, if you don't kill those people, the ones, they'll kill you. They had to there had to be a sandwich of death threats to get people to kill. And there were still people who refused. That's how much it is just like human nature. We don't want to kill. Like, it's not even like, if you have a happy childhood where your caregivers provide enough love and affection, like, ideally, and sometimes sadly, capitalism can come and intercept and disincentivize, but if it goes right, you're not even really going to want to harm anybody else, and we got to try to that has to be what we strive for. And I love that that's where the movie's head is at as well. I guess, okay, so before I talk details about the battle, I do just briefly want to, so the wrap up was very nicely done. We have the Alice's vision, you know, so I guess the 7 years later, or at least, and we see, yeah, all four of them happy together, the two couples, and let's see, we have the thing about forever being both spoken, and we also see it in the from a page in the book. Right, I think it is actually the last page of the book is shown, and they highlight the word forever, and we have and they're back in the field, so romantic, and it means something new now. He agreed. He finally relented and let her make the decision for herself. He changed her. Last time we saw, that was, she insisted on and she worried about aging, and now that conflict has been resolved. And you have the thing about, that means that I love you more than anyone else ever has. And then, she says, except for one person. It's just so sweet. Just, yeah. And that's, again, I've heard that from many couples. They felt like they couldn't possibly love another person more than they loved each other, and then they had a kid together, and now that kid is just the center of the universe for them. And I think that does more or less cover. I did appreciate the Christopher and Gary are still very much like, you're making a mistake. The Volturi is going to come for you sooner or later, and that kind of comes across as a little bit paranoid, like, and it's 1,500 years they've been waiting for revenge, and they didn't have the numbers, but now briefly they did. So yeah, they're thinking like that, and it is one of those things. Like, I mean, if the Volturi wanted to 100% kill you, I feel like they probably would have by now. I mean, they can pretty much find anyone. So let's see. And I'm gonna read too much into it. You can't stop me. The 150-year-old half mortal, I feel like, is showing, this world that these two parents are hoping for is feasible. It's just about giving it a chance and making sure it works. It takes a lot of effort to raise a kid, but yeah, it can. I don't think it's an accident that we see him, and then later we have Alice's vision. Like, it's very much saying the future is a bright future is possible. It is in the future for the two of them, and it is his present. I mean, he seems happy and well-adjusted, and certainly, like, it's very, very gutsy to come and, like, I figure Alice has explained, I mean, if they think you're an immortal child, well, okay, they're not going to think that, but, we've been told, I mean, they'll kill an entire village just to take one, gifted vampire. Yeah. I think that pretty well brings us to absolutely love the end credits, serving as end credits for the entire series, not just this movie, and with an actual proper, like, on-screen, I forget what it's called, sign off. I think you know what I mean, but they'll show the actor and have the actor's name as they're in character, clips from the other movies, and they even they show the original actress that was replaced, the redheaded vampire. That was really, really sweet, and I quite appreciated that they start with some of the ones that don't have as big a role and close on, the love triangle uh, members. Yeah. So the big battle. It is genuinely clever, this thing of like, Alice removes her hand and says, "It doesn't matter what I show you. You're going to attack anyway." And at the time, like when you see it, you think, "Oh, that's stuff that, that you think that is what is actually that the Volturi are impossible." And then in retrospect, once you see, oh, it was a vision, Alice is telling him, "Hey, if you do attack, this is what'll happen." You know, there is a version of this that you refuse our, you know, idea of peace, and this is how it's going to go. But yeah, the battle itself, holy crap. I love the X-Men vibe of parts of it with, the force field and the opening of it, like the freaking earthquake, I guess just splitting the ground. Holy crap. Oh, that was, yeah. You may remember that I kept saying, I feel like there's something I'm missing. Now I remember what I was missing. Bella, yeah, the thing about, oh, she's a shield. Oh, that makes sense. That's how I couldn't read your mind. And yeah, that, um, yeah, the thing about, nobody could read her. And then yeah, there's the thing about, well, I mean, we could practice, you could improve it. And, she's like, oh, I mean, I don't even have to respec. I'll just, hold on. I'll upgrade this and that'll be useful. Got it. Let's train. Um, and, yeah, it was both funny and cool. The thing about, so she keeps zapping Edward, and he's like, "Oh, that hurts." Just I'm not glad that he's suffering, but it is just I don't know. I think they did a good job on the scene, and yeah, the thing about, oh, maybe you lack motivation. Should we go wake Renesmee? And like for a second there, I thought Bella was gonna rip her head off or something. But yeah, she manages to learn to control the power, and he's like, well, it stings a little, but it's manageable. Um, and also the thing of, Lee Pace with her, and I was like, oh, that's smarts. But yeah, so in the battle, and all right, I also thought they did a good job visualizing. That was also something Bill Condon called out in the commentary track. They worked to make sure that it was a visual thing, that the shield. Yeah, I thought they did a good job on that. And yeah, like an X-Men thing, okay, so that person is making a shield over that person, but that means they are not shielding themselves. So I'm going to attack the shield, and then, the other person isn't going to be shielded, and that's going to, very, very nicely done there. And let's see. I wonder how many fans at like, events and such just ask Dakota Fanning to say the word pain. But yeah, she's been really great in each of these. The third was probably my favorite. Several lines that are really good. The decisions bit was fantastic. Anyway, I think that pretty well brings us to the right, and yeah, Bella, you know, yeah, inducing the montage of some of the best moments from the movies, to prove her love. And that again, like, listen, long-term relationships, it's important to reaffirm your love and commitment to each other, and to express it, you know. I think, does that pretty well bring us to the, let's see. We have Yes, back to the battle. So yeah, um, yeah, the splitting apart the Earth was one of the coolest bits. I love that several people, some of them like were just quick enough to get out of the way, but others like fell down or pushed down, and suddenly it changes the nature of the battle. Someone was on the ground before, but now they're on the ground right next to the hole to the and yeah, one of them like right before letting someone fall, like they've got their claws into the other person's hands, and they're like, "Long live the king." But the let's see. Yeah, the part where right, I think okay, this might be was this before the battle? The part where they um the one who could make you see something wonderful, she takes away their sight. Very clever, and that's a good creative way to think about it. Because, like, yeah, I mean, if she can control what you see, surely she could take away your sight. Okay, I'll stop calling you Shirley. But yeah, just some really really great, and that also had some of the dog whining. Oh. But yeah, heads being torn off, and you know one of the Volturi, like right before people rip off, some of the others rip off his arms, he's like, finally. Not entirely sure, like, did he just have a death wish, and if so, which part? But let's see. Yeah, I really like when they managed to get one over on the Dakota Fanning character. Um, her, like, she communicated so much with her eyes throughout the movie. For a good chunk of it, like, you know, in control kind of thing, and then here at the end is like, oh crap, this is not going to go well. And I feel like is that everything? Right, some great stuff where two people will jump and like tackle one another in midair. Really, really cool. Right, let's see. One of them was like, right, and Al is like getting to kick some of the people who are restraining her. And I'm afraid I forget who, but someone like punches or kicks Arrow, and he goes flying, and there's like several seconds where he's just in the air, and they really make sure to get a lot of material out of it, and it just builds and builds. It's like, holy crap, it's happening, it's actually, and he eventually does land. Just, yeah, really really nicely done. It's such a delicate balance, because you could so easily have like milked it too long, and the audience is being like, okay, move on. But it is such a momentous moment that you need to underline, no, this is freaking big. This is huge. Nobody thought that they would be able to actually take on the Volturi like this. Even like throughout the movie, like characters will say, I don't know if we're gonna win, and I'm not fighting the Volturi for you, and these various things. Um, let's see. I think does that more or less cover hmm I right, as far as Renesmee goes, I thought some of the best stuff with her was, yeah, when it was basically Mackenzie Foy, or at least they barely de-age her um face and put it on someone else, and just, yeah, her moments with Bella, talking to Bella, for example, and these various, yeah, lot of really great stuff there. Um, yeah, the pack of wolves attacking during the battle was also great. Yeah, I really admire. Like, I feel like there might be more action in this one battle than in the third movie if you take all the action scenes of the third movie and combine them. I don't know. I could be wrong, but it was definitely, it was the biggest, and it felt like a proper finale. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, with the battle, I don't just want to be naming every single thing that happens in it. It was all really amazing stuff that I'd wanted to see. I've wanted to see these characters really just go off and do huge yeah. But yeah, I quite appreciated the way that the almost there, the X-Men vibe of actually using the powers in a, like the fact that so yeah, taking away the sight from the ones that they want to stop in their tracks, because how else are they going to be able to, they can't, they have to just remain there until they get their sight back, essentially, and tearing a hole in the ground, um these kinds of things. And I already mentioned the thing about okay, that person is making a shield about this other person. I want to attack this person, but that person is making the shield, so I'll attack that person so they can no longer be making the shield. And these kinds of things, yeah, genuinely clever tactical use of superpowers. So yeah, very much like X-Men 1 and 2 and some of the other sequels. Not so much like X-Men 3.